none of those expectations were outside of Salt Lake. And so certainly from a national scene, yeah, they were never, I mean, I'd started my master's. I had every intention of coming back from my senior year. Never thought in my wildest dreams I'd ever get drafted.
Why do you know the names of all the quarterbacks like who were rated higher than you coming out of high school?
You know, I think for one, curiosity. You know, we were a really good football school. You know, I felt like in high school, man, we probably could have played with anybody. You know, the talent that we had, and so this was kind of like the dawn of a lot of these databases now that are online, right? Like high school databases. Like back then, it was like Cal High Sports. You know, and they'd rate recruits, and they'd have, you know, these databases of film, and they'd rank these teams, and you know, you're so-and-so stars, and you're the best quarterback in the state, or you're this ranked nationally. And so you could follow all these guys, right? Like I remember, like, you know, hearing about all these like Elite 11 quarterbacks, and these guys threw for this many yards and had these offers from these schools and were these like rated. And I was I had the NR, like the no rating, right? No offers, wasn't even ranked, you know, like in California. And yeah, so from afar, right, this curiosity that I felt like we could beat anybody. I felt like I could play. And I had this curiosity, like, could I, right? Like, what was my potential? Man, and it drove me, right? It was like obsessive a little bit. I knew the guys that are Elite 11 my year, like, hey, these are the guys, right? These are the best. Had offers from everywhere. I mean, they got to pick their school, and you know, I had one offer, you know, and it was different. So, but that curiosity like drove me.
Wait, you had two offers though, didn't you?
Yeah.
I mean, Utah and Louisville?
And Louisville.
I mean, those were the two.
I don't count that one. The nepotism involved doesn't. I'm not sure that qualifies as a full offer.
So your uncle was the head coach of Louisville.
Yeah,
at
I
the
grew up
time.
in a football.
Also,
yeah.
Like also was once the head coach of Michigan State. But
Yeah.
I mean, he made you an offer, and I mean, I think his offensive coordinator legitimately like recruited you too. But how true is it that, I mean, because he was the head coach, you decided not to go there, especially because I think when you were quarterback in high school, some people thought that you might have only gotten that because your dad was principal.
Yeah, I mean, there was always that stigma a little bit, like the principal's kid. You know, so certainly, yeah, like as I was growing, I mean, not so much my senior year, but certainly as you're competing for like the starting varsity job, right? And all of a sudden you win it. Yeah, there was always, I think, some resentment from people that maybe I competed against and other people in the school. Yeah, like, he's just there. He's the principal's kid.
Bother you?
I mean, for sure, early on, yeah, like I felt like I'd earned it, you know, and you had to go out and prove that. I mean, it was ridiculous, you know, but nonetheless, it was there. It wasn't early on when I was competing, like sophomore, junior year, and trying to play. Like, yeah, like, he's the principal's kid is the only reason. But yeah, then I grew up in a big football family, and my uncle was a Division I coach, and when I was in high school, he was at Louisville. And yeah, Scott Linehan was the coordinator at that time. He was a young coach, and I felt like, yeah, it was kind of this, oh yeah, they had me out for an official and offered me, but it seemed random. I was growing up in San Diego, you know, the majority of the recruiting that took place for me was, you know, at that time, kind of these WAC schools and Mountain West and West Coast schools. And, you know, Louisville offered me and had me out. Obviously, it was pretty glaring. Like when I went on my trip, my uncle and his family picked me up and my cousins were there. And like, you know, this wasn't your typical trip to a college and evaluating a school. I'd known Scott Linehan since I was a little kid, just through my uncle. You know, he played for my uncle at the University of Idaho. So I always questioned how genuine it was in my head, you know, the self-doubt. And that always lingered. And yeah, so I don't totally qualify that one as a real scholarship offer.
So you go to Utah, you end up being asked to forego your redshirt freshman season, which removes year of your playing eligibility, and then your first game, or the first time you get in, you throw 2 interceptions, one's returned for a touchdown, and then you don't get the opportunity to play again that season. But that night, after that game, what are you thinking?
Oh man, it was a disaster. The game's already over, it's out of reach. I go out, I'm trying to be a hero. And yeah, I throw a pick six pretty quick. I get sacked a bunch of times. I'm indecisive. It's not good at all, right? And this is my first taste of college football playing time, and that whole year just spiraled down. I ended up not playing at all the rest of the year. I played 7 plays and lost my whole year. Coaching staff got fired. We definitely underachieved. Yeah, and it was a frustrating year, right, on a lot of levels. Losing's not fun, and then to get put through all that and really felt like I got deceived a little bit and lost my whole year.
Why did you feel like you got deceived a little bit?
Just from the playing time standpoint, right? You know, here I'm going to give up my redshirt year and come out and play. We were already midway through the season and promised playing time, and it never happened, you know, and 7 plays for a whole year eligibility was a hard, tough pill to swallow.
So your mom's pushing you to transfer to Harvard. You end up staying put at Utah. New coach ends up coming in, Urban Meyer, and he said that you were, quote, an okay quarterback who overanalyzed everything and didn't know what he was doing, and that you were only 3rd string because there wasn't a 4th string available. Like, why did you always think, even once you got to college, that was kind of going to be it for you? That, I mean, you're going to play in college and then move on to a new career? Yeah,
I mean, I think maybe, I don't know what you want to call it, maybe too much self-doubt, like too realistic a kid. You'd always hear the stats, right? Like what the percentages of playing professional sports, professional football, right? Like it's tiny, it's absurd, right? And so I don't even know if I dared to dream like that. You know, for me growing up, I loved college football. I loved the idea of like just total selflessness, right? The pride in school, giving it up, the student section, the band, like the energy that comes with college sports, especially college football. And I loved that, and that was my dream, right? That was like and it got bigger and bigger as I got older, and then as I got in high school, and that's what I dared to dream for, right? Like that could I go do that? And I wanted to do that, and I wanted to be that. And so I never thought about anything beyond that. Education.
Like really?
Never. Yeah, no, never. I mean, I didn't even think about it. I didn't dare to.
When did you start?
It seemed absurd. I mean, God, I to be honest, not even until after probably like my last college regular game did I think that was a possibility.
What do you mean? You didn't think about it until after your last college game, and then you went number 1?
Yeah, well, when you go to Utah, the University of Utah, we certainly had guys go on and play, right, and have NFL careers, but the last quarterback at that point to have gone on and played was Scott Mitchell. And that was in the 80s. This wasn't like we were pumping out college quarterbacks that were like having NFL careers, and so. Yeah,
but you went number 1 after your last.
Yeah, but you're kind of in a bubble. We weren't a big division program. This is in the days of the BCS, right? And all the talk then was, could we be the first school to break down the BCS, to defy the BCS? And that's the world we lived in, right? And that's everything we worked for. Could we be the school that breaks down the BCS? And we knew we had to run the table to do it. And I played my sophomore year. I played all those games, and you're in relative obscurity. I was just this sophomore quarterback from the University of Utah. We had done okay as my sophomore year, and we had expectations for ourselves going into my junior year, my last year, but none of those expectations were outside of Salt Lake. And so certainly from a national scene, yeah, there were never. I'd started my master's. I had every intention of coming back from my senior year. Never thought in my wildest dreams I'd ever get drafted. Yeah, maybe. I think maybe at that point, who knows? Maybe you got a cup of coffee or something. I get a tryout, but I never had expectations beyond that.
What did you think you were going to do?
Go to school. I started my master's. I was
Were
contemplating.
You interested in law?
Yeah, contemplating going to law school, getting my JD. I was still in the thick of figuring out what it is I want to do, right? What I want to do with my life. I knew education was important. I knew it was, the vehicle for me to go do what I wanted to do, and I wasn't finished there, and I guess I've still pressed pause on that to this day, right? I've still hit the pause button And someday I'm gonna have to go back to that, and I'll get to kind of play that out. So.
What's your reaction the first time you're given any idea of the type of money you could be earning once you're drafted?
Yeah, you're just floored by it, right? You don't believe it, right? And you don't see the money, right? No one's like showing you that much cash. You see it on a piece of paper. So it's not as easy to believe. You're not sure it's real. You're not sure. You're definitely not qualified to like handle that. No 20-year-old comes spitting out ready to be able to invest that kind of money properly.
So 20 years old, $48 million contract.
Yeah.
And you don't even have credit yet.
No, in fact, I have bad credit because I got talked into my last year when we moved off campus. Me and a bunch of buddies, right? We finally get off the dorms and we move into a house, and somehow I get like all the utilities put in my name. You were like divvying up the bills, right? Like, hey, you guys got this, you guys got this, and somehow they all get put in my name. Of course, right? The whole last year, like we definitely were late on a bunch of bills, like like final notice, like lights are gonna get turned off. Hey, we better pay this one. And they were somehow the majority of them were under my name. So my credit not only is not great, it's bad. It's bad coming into the NFL.